All right, what do you think? You ready to go?
Ready whenever you're ready.
Okay, so hello and welcome. My name is Stephanie Kilby, and I am the UAGC Director of Student Success and your host for this session, Navigating the Complex Terrain, Barriers and Opportunities for Creating Belonging in Higher Education. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we do encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, please click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you today to Dr. Deanne Boyd and Dr. Harlan Williams Jr. Dr. Boyd is a renowned global educator, strategist, speaker, and consultant in luxury and experiential marketing and education. She has over 2 decades of experience as an adjunct professor, curriculum writer, and course developer. And her research areas include inclusive pedagogy, mentoring and support systems, career preparation and workforce integration, and curriculum and instruction. Dr. Boyd uses her global teaching experience to create culturally responsive teaching by developing and disseminating effective strategies and cultural references in all aspects of learning. Dr. Harlan Williams Jr. resides in Augusta, Georgia, and just retired on October 31st, 2024, after 35 years of combined federal service in the U.S. Army and Department of Energy. He has been an adjunct professor since 2008 and currently teaches at Georgia Military College, where he was honored as the 2023 Adjunct Educator of the Year. He has more than 30 years of experience in business management and entrepreneurship, with research interests in the concepts and barriers of the glass ceiling, compensation, job satisfaction, and retention. Dr. Williams is also passionate about developing strategies to enrich learning environments to promote inclusiveness and belonging in the classroom. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Boyd. Dr. Williams, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much for having us. All right. We'll get to this next slide here. So as she gave you guys our title, we are excited to join you today and talk about belonging and inclusivity in higher education. So it's not just about being present. It's about feeling that one is an integral part of the community. Creating an inclusive and welcoming environment in higher education is essential for student success, well-being, and engagement. Today, Dr. Williams and I will take a deeper dive into this concept of fostering belonging, identify opportunities where institutions can improve inclusivity, and share strategies to do so for both students and faculty. Dr. Williams will explore opportunities and strategies for higher education institutions to improve inclusiveness and belonging for students, while I will focus on opportunities and strategies from a professor's perspective. Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. And thank you for having us today. Good morning to some and good afternoon to others. I realize that we have people on both sides of the state of the United States. So again, welcome. The first thing I would like to do is begin asking everyone in the audience to take a minute to define inclusion and belonging as it relates to higher education. So Stephanie, I want to give them a few minutes to just give a quick definition or some words that will signify what they think inclusion and belonging is, and then we'll pick it up from there if we're able to do that. Room.
So we'll ask people to put their thoughts in the chat and we can take a look in and watch how people respond.
Mm-hmm. So while they're doing that, and we can come back to that a little bit later, later on in the presentation. Just want to start with what Harvard University's glossary of diversity, inclusion, and belonging defined inclusion as when everyone is included, visible, heard, and considered. While Cornell University's diversity and inclusion webpage define belonging as the feeling of security and support when there's a sense of acceptance, inclusion, and identity for a member of a certain group. So when we pull these definitions, we're not pulling it from Harvard or Cornell just to say, hey, they know everything. We just thought that these were simple definitions in regards to inclusion and belonging. So what we're going to ask you to do is we'll ask Stephanie if she would read a couple of the definitions, what we got in the audience, and then we'll do a little bit of comparison.
Thank you. So it looks like some common themes around a sense of community, around feeling like we're a part of something, feeling safe in the classroom and on campus. So it feels like people are pretty much in line with what you're sharing around inclusion and belonging.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for participating in that. Like Stephanie just said, it just appears like everyone is in line with what Harvard and Cornell University's aspect and concepts associated with inclusion and belonging. Okay. It's important to understand that inclusion and belonging are related, but somewhat different concepts. And what you'll find as we discuss these opportunities for higher education institutions to improve inclusion and belonging, you'll see that many of the opportunities would address both concepts. Next slide. Next slide, Dr. Boyd.
Yep. It just is getting a little, I don't know if there's a trick to this, but it won't go to the next slide. Here we go. Let's try this again. Stephanie, you may know it won't advance in this format. That's the issue we were having before.
I think it's okay to take it out of presentation mode if you're able to do that, and we can go back to.
Sure. Okay. Let me try to do that. Let's see here. You guys can bear with us for just a moment. My apologies here. Let's see if we can. Here we are. All right. And Dr. Williams, back to you.
Thank you. A 2023 study by the United States Department of Education indicated higher education institutions can begin to improve inclusion and belonging by enhancing diversity in recruitment and admissions. In regards to recruitment, broadening recruitment efforts begins with early intervention recruitment strategies, where higher education institutions can work to develop relationships and provide support to elementary and secondary schools located within their community. So the advice here is get an early start on this. You get that early start, and by the time these individuals get to college, then they will already have a sense of inclusiveness and belonging. Recruitment efforts should be focused with a supportive environment that includes students, faculty, and staff of color or different ethnic groups. Let's make it everybody. Let's make a diverse group of individuals that's involved in recruitment efforts. Also promoting recruitment for low-income, historically underrepresented, and first-generation community college transfer applicants is also a good strategy. But when they do this, there needs to be a focus on financial aid strategies, because as research indicates, a lot of students in these categories are underrepresented, first-generation, low-income. The fear of going to college begins with having the finances to do so. So in regards to admissions, institutions should utilize holistic admission processes that consist of procedures designed to achieve diversity and also involve admission preferences of certain groups of students. Pathway programs is another good way to improve inclusion and belonging. That include community and technical colleges, pre-college outreach programs, college access programs, dual enrollment, which I'm proud to say that Georgia Military College does have a dual enrollment program, and summer programs. And this can aid in pre-entrance education to break barriers that include financial planning and understanding admission expectations. And some research that we did also indicates that Colorado University in Boulder, they utilize pre-college outreach programs. They also advocate for increased financial aid, like the Pell Grant. I think we do it a lot in Georgia as well. I'm sure it's a federal program. Also, CU Boulder make the ACT and the SAT tests optional in admissions for some degree programs, along with focus on recruitment efforts, specifically targeting underrepresented communities. So, a question to you. How many in the audience have experienced a student that did not feel inclusion and or belonging? If you have not, I'd just like to share a simple story with you that has stuck with me for years. As an adjunct instructor at a college, I was on my third class. I was fairly new there at the college, on my third class there, and had a business class. It was a introductory business class, and had a student. I noticed this student was very fidgety and just felt uncomfortable in there in the class. And so, going over the syllabus, that's one of the first things we do as professors. We go over the syllabus from top to bottom. And she had a look on her face as, what is he talking about? While other students in the class were asking questions about APA and paper length and different things in regards to turning assignments. And so after class, I pulled her aside and I said, "Are you okay? Did you understand anything that went on tonight?" And she didn't answer. She said, "Well, I'll look at it when I get home." And so I didn't hear from her for a couple of days and called her and said, "Do you have any questions in regards to the class?" And she said, "Dr. Williams, I don't belong in college." And I think the reason for that is she just got put, this was her very first class in college, which should have been a college orientation class. And she gets stuck in a business class and had no earthly idea of the college process or even what it takes to be in college. So that stuck with me, and I brought it to the attention of the campus director that, the student would fail. We didn't do what we need to do to make the student successful in being in college. So that has, I was telling Dr. Boyd, we talked about this a couple of days ago, that has stuck with me for years. And I had vowed that won't happen again on my watch. And so I'll do everything I can to advocate for students that feel like they're not included, and also if they don't belong. So get back to the presentation. 2024 study suggested that investing in student support services, and this is why I'm so adamant about student support services, is another opportunity for higher education institutions to improve inclusion and belonging. And that begins with advising for first generation, low income, and historically underrepresented students who have attended schools that have few resources, less qualified teachers, and limited college prep coursework, because this will give them that college knowledge that they need to understand the rigors of coursework in higher education, which is needed to transition academically. Okay. Also, I want to reference a 2021 survey by the United States Department of Education that found a variety of student advising support services, which include peer tutoring, laboratories, workshops, and counseling services, are related to improved outcome for the low income, first generation, and historically underrepresented students. Establishing cultural resource centers is also central to improving inclusion and belonging. Specifically, cultural and socio-emotional support systems can be helpful, not to just the categories of students I'm speaking to, but to all students to thrive on campus, but it can be essentially important to students who do not comprise of an ethnic majority. Along with that, establishing multicultural centers that comprise of multicultural groups of students, can provide diverse input on events and initiatives, workshops, and even advisement. And research indicates that Georgia State University out of Atlanta has such a multicultural center, has been very effective according to research in improving inclusion and belonging. Next slide, Dr. Boyd. Creating safe and inclusive physical spaces can also provide opportunities for improved inclusion and belonging. And that is done by establishing accessible campus spaces that sponsor activities and events to increase cultural competency among students, faculty, and staff. This also has been considered an effective strategy by for, I should say, higher ed institutions. Ensuring that facilities such as campus police, admissions, registration, tutoring centers, career centers, even housing and food services, along with computer labs and student organizations, all those together, if they work together, they can ensure that students have the needed and expected accessibility to all services. Ensuring inclusive facilities and common areas reflect students' cultural backgrounds. And this can help reduce feelings of isolation. I don't know if any of you in the audience or any of my colleagues here have ever been in a place where you feel on an island, you feel isolated. It's not a really good feeling. And so it takes me back to that student. And I know she was out on the island and, you know, my heart went out to her. So again, this is what brings my passion to this topic. Because too often students of color, low-income students, and first-generation students feel college is a place that they don't belong. Ensuring equitable policies and practices that include anti-discrimination policies that openly address exclusion of diverse student groups and include accommodation for students with disabilities to support marginalized groups is very important and very essential to improving or increasing inclusiveness and belonging. Lastly, in regards to policies and procedures, or practices, I should say, ensuring flexible academic policies that support a curriculum reflecting diverse perspectives and experiences is important, while making sure that the current and historical policies that the institution has do not serve as barriers to diversity goals. So again, you know, there's a myriad of things that I could have added to this section. You know, due to the lack of time, you know, we just wanted to put out the more important ones that I felt was very good. So again, and thanks for the comment, Stephanie. It is very powerful and it's very near and dear to me. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Dr. Boyd.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. Now, I'd like to get into the professor's role in creating belonging in higher education. I'm passionate about this particular part of the presentation because I've had the opportunity to really hone in on this thought process behind belonging because I work a lot globally and cross-culturally. And that's one of the things that I often think about when I'm going into a new environment. So I've got a lot of passion points that I want to share with my fellow colleagues in this session on what do we need to think about as the professor in creating belonging in higher education. So creating a sense of belonging in the classroom is essential for fostering a positive and inclusive learning environment in higher education, as we've been hearing. When students feel valued and connected, they are more likely to engage deeply, perform better, and persist through challenges. We as professors play a pivotal role in shaping this experience using strategies that promote inclusivity, open dialogue, and mutual respect. My discussion will explore practical ways that we as professors can build a supportive classroom culture where all students feel they truly belong. So one of the first things I want to take a look at is this concept of inclusive curricula. I've got a lot of experience in this space because I've been in education almost 23 years, and specifically, I do a lot of work in the course design and development space. At this point, I've done over 50 different courses for multiple universities in higher education across the board. And something that I'm always thinking about is creating a curriculum that is representative of an inclusive classroom community. So what does that even look like? I'm often thinking about what are some things I need to incorporate as I begin this process. So for you as faculty members, if you have the opportunity to work on a curricular, here's some things I want you to think about considering. Number one, the course materials and the reading list should reflect diverse perspectives, authors, and cultural experiences. Access to books should represent students in the classroom whose backgrounds typically are not highlighted, are very important to include in our classroom resources. One of the things I love is interactive learning. Think about using the strategy of interactive learning instead of a lecture. There was a study done earlier this year, and it found that students wanted a sense of community instead of lectures, and dedicating specific class time to discussions helped connect students with the course material and allowed them to see themselves in the course materials. I'll tell you a quick story. When I first started working in Europe, one of the first universities I worked for was Polimoda in Florence, Italy. And imagine working with 23 different students from 7 to 8 different continents across the globe. And I'm one of the only English speaking persons there, I thought. Most of them speak English, but it's not their first language. One of the things I thought about as it relates to lecture was making sure, how did everybody belong? How did I feel like I belong? So one of the things I would often do is I had learning exercises that incorporated a lot of music and pop culture. Because what I found is that music and pop culture, to my fellow colleagues, is something that's transformational, and it is something that everybody across the globe pays attention to. So if you're ever thinking about what kind of interactive activities can I do, instead of just standing here lecturing, and I teach a lot of marketing courses, we were looking at some of the top commercials from your Nike, from some of your global brands like Coca-Cola, and from the music to the clothes to the ambiance. There's so many great points there, guys. Just think about how you can use that. I've used that effectively, and my students loved it. So they were learning without me lecturing. It was a conversation, and everybody was participating. Next, think about creating a class structure that focused on mastery of learning rather than performance. This is something I'm passionate about. Again, bringing in my experience from teaching abroad, we don't focus as much on grades as much as we do mastery. Because as we know, sometimes in higher education, to my colleagues, there can be so much of a focus on grades that our students are temporarily learning. They're memorizing, they're not even learning. So how can we as professors help them to master what we are trying to share with them? It's a great thought. So treat your students as a partner. That's how I do. I use a coaching approach. I come in as the guide from the side. So my students, when I say that, the students love that. So it kind of breaks down that whole idea of the scary teacher or the professor. That's a strategy that I have used, and I have found it to be very successful. One other thing I want to share with you, my experience as a designer for curricula, for those of you who have an opportunity to work as a SME, is thinking about the dynamics of your school and your classroom. I work for an institution that has over 81,000 online students. It's one of the largest in the world. And I'm often doing a lot of course design. I did about 7 classes this summer. And one of the things we were doing was updating courses. So you can imagine, with business being our largest program, guys, students are coming from all over the world. So when I have to go in and update a course or I'm looking at curricular, I'm often thinking about students from everywhere. Just this morning, I was speaking to one of my students from India and Bangladesh on WhatsApp. She couldn't access my office hour because I use Teams, but we talked on WhatsApp. It works. So again, she said she felt so belonged because she was halfway across the world in a different time zone. But I found a way to make her feel included. Something else I want to share with you before I get off this point. Instead of always using lectures as part of my curricular and assignments like papers, I do a lot of blogs. Students love the blog idea, and it's a great way for them to be a lot more creative and to share what they're learning outside of the classroom with their peers. Okay. The next point I want to focus on is facilitating faculty and staff diversity. It's important for universities to recruit diverse faculty and leadership. As Dr. Williams and I were talking about this topic that we're both very passionate about, we often think about when we're going into an institution, we, like anyone else, we're looking for people who look like us and our colleagues. So it's important that institutions have a hiring practice that prioritizes attracting and retaining. Retaining is important. That retention allows us to serve as a role model for the underrepresented student. I've now moved into the HBCU space as an educator, and what I have found is that that sense of being relatable and diversity is very important to everyone. We also look at creating mentorship programs. These are great because they allow underrepresented students from different backgrounds. In one of my institutions, I work with a lot of students from Africa. So we've been making sure that we have a lot of our faculty member who are of that same culture participate in mentorship and partnerships to help just explain and break down some of these barriers of all these things that our students are experiencing, which often makes them feel like they don't belong. So think about that. Something that's so simple as partnering your faculty members with other students who may also just need a support, a smiling face, someone just to talk to, is really important. So as I'm sharing this, I can't see what's in the chat, but I see the bubble going, so I'm excited. I want you to think about this and just drop it in the chat. We'll come back to it. What are some best practices? I've kind of shared a lot over these last two slides, but what are some things that you, my colleagues, are doing in your classroom that help to create a sense of belonging? Because this is a space that I hope we're all going to learn from today. And as faculty members, I'd love to have something new to take away because teachers love to be taught. So just take a minute and drop a few ideas in the chat about what you are doing in your classroom to create that sense of belonging. And we'll come back to that. Something to consider as a faculty member is promoting inclusive pedagogy. This means consider active learning methods, encourage interactive, student-centered, that's important, student-centered learning methods that reduce barriers to participation for students from diverse backgrounds. Language barriers are large because they can be perceived as a source of exclusion. So it's very important to think about adapting and using inclusive and non-stigmatizing language actively. That part is important because we know off the back, a lot of students are very conscious about when they speak. They know that people will understand they're from a different country because English is not always their first language. So many times people don't speak up. With that said, I want you to consider allowing your students to demonstrate their knowledge through different modalities. In my courses, I try to use a multitude of different ideas for students to express themselves. Oral, written, and creative methods that will allow themselves to do everything except having to talk directly and allow them to instead draw on their own individual strengths. Maybe they're good writers. Maybe they're good presenters. That's what I found with the blog. Students love doing the blog because it was written, and then they could put creative things in there. It showed them in a different light, and they felt included. Next, creative inclusive classroom environments. Faculty should be trained to address microaggressions and discrimination in the classroom and foster dialogue that respects different viewpoints. That's something I look for a lot in my classroom because I teach a lot of global courses. So I always pay attention to the temperature on the chat. I make sure that no matter where someone is from, that language is always able to be respected and students are able to be heard. I do that by going into the next point, creating a warmth environment and respect for students with a positive tone. In my class, typically every Monday, I do what I call motivating Mondays, and I'll share something positive with the students when I upload my announcements. And it's a thought that I like for them to carry with them throughout the week. And then I go back in on Wednesday when initial work is due, and I'll give them another touch base, and then finally on Sunday. And you may think that sounds like a lot. The student remind me and say, thank you. Thank you for reminding me because I'm not here. My mother's not here. My family's not here. If you were not here, I would not have that support and felt like I belonged. So that little reminder, something that you guys can do that doesn't cost you anything but your time. Think about being aware of stereotypes. This occurs a lot as we think about different stereotypes with people's identity. That's important. Universal Design for Learning, UDL, is an important principle because we want to make sure that learning is accessible for everyone. So again, think about your course material and how easy it is to understand and interpret. This is another point. These last two are great for me. All of them are, but these last two especially. Be aware of the different ways that students from other countries communicate. I was blown away when I was looking at this study by this particular person that was done earlier this year. And she looked at students, women specifically from Asian countries, and their sense of what they needed to feel like they were belonging. She found that women students in Asian countries tend to be more agreeable to everyone. And they do that because culturally they're taught not to speak up because it's seen as a sense of contradiction. I thought that was powerful. So in other words, when we're on a discussion board or if they're in a group, they're going to go along to get along because culturally that's just what they do. Even if they feel differently, guys, they don't want to say something because it's going to make them seem like the outsider. So think about your projects. Think about ways that you are sharing your information and who's in your classroom. Are we excluding people? Are we including people? Using different technological tools. Again, we're all faculty members and we work with different LMS systems. One of the ones that I love working with is Canvas. And here's something interesting I learned about Canvas. Canvas is great, but what I found, and this is what the study showed, is that it will show students' names. Sometimes students do not want their name to be displayed when they are communicating in the classroom because their name may not be American. And immediately it draws attention to them in a negative way. Never thought about it until I did this research on this particular point, and I thought to myself, wow. I didn't consider the fact that someone in my classroom who does not have a name that they feel like is going to be accepted, or it could be something stereotypical, could feel excluded because their name is having to be displayed. Okay. Next, foster cross-cultural dialogue and collaboration. Think about your campus-wide initiatives. Organize dialogues, workshops, and events that bring people together in different populations to share their experiences and perspectives. Think about intergroup collaboration. Encourage collaborations between different identity-based organizations or communities on campus to build understanding and solidarity. Social voluntary events are an extension of higher education, so it's important to provide opportunities for students to connect and socialize. I did that a lot when I was in college. I was one of the only people from Alabama, and most of my peers were from up north. So having that opportunity to engage with other people outside was really helpful for me. And then think about service learning and community engagement. Provide opportunities for students to engage in diverse local communities through service, learning, internships, and collaborative research. Positive language is the last point I want to share with you. And these are some nuggets I want you to take away. Have you ever considered how powerful language is, guys? Language serves as a key driver in establishing a classroom community that learns, grows together, supports one another, and creates a sense of belonging. By changing questions or statements slightly, you can still get your point across and provide a more positive tone towards students. So here's some examples of things that are common statements that we've all said at one point in our classroom, and I want to invite you to think about saying it a little differently. I've done this myself. Example number one, instead of asking, do you need help? Say instead, I'm here to help you if you need me. Number two, I think I just said this to myself today when a student asked me a question. I've already explained how to do this. So before I communicated, I thought to myself, let me say this differently. Maybe I can show you another way. It's a lot softer. Third, do you have any questions? This is one of my favorites. What questions do you have? It opens the door. It opens the door and invites them to come into our space and feel included. And lastly, it's not that hard. Instead, let them know you can do hard things. Building an inclusive classroom not only benefits academic and social success, but can have impact on student mental health, classroom achievement, and development. Now I'll turn it back over to Dr. Williams to close us out.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. Some great points in regards to the professor's perspective on building belonging. So why is inclusion and belonging important for institutions of higher education? Well, it's critical in higher education institutions because they significantly impact student engagement, academic performance, mental health, and overall retention. Also, it results in a welcoming environment where all students, faculty, and staff feel valued, respected, and empowered to participate fully. Lastly, a sense of belonging fosters a positive learning environment and promotes a diverse and inclusive campus culture. And so it was our hope today that we give you ideas or provide you with ideas to augment what you're currently doing in the classroom or even in advising in those areas so that we can achieve an acceptable level of inclusion and belongingness in our classroom. And as you see, and as you may have noted, inclusion and belonging is an entire responsibility for the whole institution, all the way from advising to the professor. So we all got to work in concert to make sure that this happens. So with that being said, next slide, Dr. Boyd. Do we have any questions out there in chat land or from anyone?
I don't see any questions in the chat yet, but I do have a question for you.
Okay.
One, this was an amazing 45 minutes. I love that I can walk away with tangible things I can do because the action piece is important. And what I've noticed is sometimes in my role when talking with people about a student sense of belonging, they can be quick to say, students in my classroom feel like they belong. And I think that's great, but then I also think, how do you know that? Are you making any assumptions? Are you asking them? Like, what are these indicators? So just wondering if you have one or two quick tips on how we can check our own biases or blind spots to make sure that we're continuing to push towards an inclusive environment.
Well, for me, how I check mine is a great question, Stephanie. I ask myself how I want to be treated. Am I treating or am I presenting myself in the classroom as if I was sitting in that seat? So that's how I check myself. I do a self-check. That's something that the Army taught me, self-check. And if I feel that I'm satisfied with what I'm doing, in regards to if it was me, then I think I'm achieving the objective of making sure that students feel included and they feel like they belong. It's just like, I just want to parallel to, it's just like if you owned a senior facility and you have people coming in there, you want your facility to be a place that you will be comfortable putting your mother, your father. And so that's the way I do a self-check. Just self-checking myself and make sure that if I was in that situation, because I'm a first generation student. I'm a low income student. I was reared in a small county in Georgia, low income. Came from a high school, not knocking my high school, but it wasn't very many resources. So I fit this category that we're talking about. And so, with me, I went through the Army and allowed myself to get some benefits to go to school, but still, there was times that I didn't feel like I was included or I belonged. So that's why it's so passionate to me. So I see what Dr. Boyd responds to that question as well.
Stephanie, I use the strategy. I have a little bit of a different story because I'm from Alabama. There's a couple things. I'm African American, I'm a woman, and I'm from Alabama. First of all, I think about what happened when I went to college my first year, and I called my family crying because the depiction that they had when I talk about stereotypes is something I will never forget, and it hurt. Okay. I didn't want it to carry me, but it polarized me. So now, as I think about people coming to me, first of all, I use the approach as the guide from the side and the coach, and I share a lot of real stories. My bio to my students is like this. I probably overshare because I tell them everything because I want them to feel comfortable. I talk about the good, the bad, and what I call the ugly. I've shared about my success of my business. I share a lot of things with them because I want them to understand and relate. I want them to trust me. So before classes start, Stephanie, I'm already in my course when the roster comes. I send an email really early and it's very personal. Sometimes I send a video. My strategy is building trust before it even starts. And what I found is being real with the student. I was in a call today with the student 2 hours before she started crying. And I had to remind her that you're in a vulnerable space. You're in a safe space. We are connected. I'm with you. I want to see you succeed. She's just bawling. And I let her get it out. But I knew I created a space, and she said that to me. She's not even in my class anymore. But she said, "You're the first person. I'm here in Georgia. I'm by myself. I'm taking care of my grandmother. I've been here for 3 years. I'm 42 years old." I mean, she was just dumping. My heart, I wanted to cry, but I saw that she needed the space to get it out. But she said, "I connected with you because you're from Alabama. You're in Georgia. You're just like me. I'm not that much, behind you." And she said, "I don't know who I am. I'm lost." I said, "I've been there. I've been there." And I shared my story. So for me, Stephanie, I wanted to cry. I'm so real. Sometimes I will cry with them. I make myself so available. And when I communicate with the students, Stephanie, at the end of every question, I always say, "Did I answer your question to the ability that you needed?" I always say, "Thank you for asking me a question." I always say, "Please come talk to me. I want you." I do so much because I realize a lot of my students are not here with family and support. They are by themselves. When I do voice comments, Stephanie, I use software that gives voice comments because what I found is that students let their children listen to me give them feedback. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So I'm taking extra 5 minutes, and the students live for my feedback because they said my kids will come because they see mommy in school. They see why mommy can't come tuck them into the bed because Dr. B is giving me all this feedback because mommy didn't get a good grade. That's real. They do belong. So I tell them you belong, and I'm going to make sure you feel like you belong. So I use the point of being compassionate. I use the strategy of being supportive. I use the strategy of being real, and I'm very vulnerable with them. I'm very tough. I do not bend and be flexible, but they learn, Stephanie. They do not memorize. And I pride myself in that. So that's what I do.
Amazing. Thank you both so much. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you for the last 45 minutes for you to share your experiences. Thank you to our audience for your participation today. I did post the survey link in the chat, so please use that to nominate our TLC presentations for conference awards, share your feedback. Dr. Williams, Dr. Boyd, hopefully you can continue to engage with participants in our Whova platform. Such an honor to be with you today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks.
Have a good day, everyone.